Our next guest, this has been a very anticipated spot. Because Mike Schaefer of Husker 24/7 Sports left us wanting more last week when he was on the show.
Highlight of the week.
He went nuclear, and we hadn't even played the UCLA game. He was calling out a lot of elements about what is happening and what needs to get better, especially the special teams. Then the unfathomable, maybe fathomable, but the unfathomable 27-20 outcome where UCLA is on top, beats Nebraska, and Nebraska still searching for bowl eligibility into a bye week as we welcome in Schaef. Schaef, I think a lot of people want to know what your encore performance will be after last week's all-timer.
It'll probably be a little muted. I mean, it's a bye week. Nebraska basically no-showed for quarter and a half. Is that fair? I would almost say the entire first half.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's going to be some big encore coming. Everyone saw that they basically didn't show up for a game that they had an opportunity to win. It's mystifying as you have a bunch of seniors who came back for the entire idea of they wanted to leave the program better than where they found it. And then you come out flat and don't perform against a team that, frankly, I mean, they're 2-5. Mm-hmm. Like it's kind of remarkable that a 2-5 team that has less to play for outcoaches and outplays Nebraska at home on a day in which you can clinch your first bowl berth in like 8 years. So, you know, I don't know that there's a whole lot that I can add to that. Nebraska didn't play well in any particular phase. And now they have 2 weeks to try to figure it out before they go play a USC team that's equally as backsliding as Nebraska is. And so that game should be filled with a lot of tension and, you know, probably not the cleanest play that you're ever going to see.
All right,
but
so
that's kind of where we are. I apologize. Like, I know that people want the fireworks.
We do have a lot of people on the stream that are saying, all right, come on, let's go, Mike. And I think you're disappointing some folks. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, just like Nebraska on Saturday.
Yay. Zing.
There he is.
All right. So obviously the biggest discussion point is the addition of Dana Holgorsen to the staff for an offense that has not made the strides I think that basically everyone thought they would with a new quarterback and a new, you know, wide receiver core this season. So we ask you, Mike Schaefer, does Dana Holgorsen get your corn sprouted?
Quite the turn of phrase.
I love that.
No, I mean, it depends on what happens here, right? Like, is this something that's more for 2025? Like, obviously, if it's a long-term thing and he ultimately takes over as offensive coordinator, then yeah, I'm pretty intrigued by it. If it's hey, we're just bringing a guy in to have him try to help us get over the hump here in the final 3 games, and there's no, you know, long-term shift with it, then it's a nice addition. Like, here's the thing. Nebraska has the resources to be able to go and do this. That's part of why the loss to UCLA is so frustrating. Nebraska has every resource that it could ever ask for a football program. Mm-hmm. And yet it can't seem to get stuff out of the mud. And so to be able to go and hire, you know, 2 guys in Phil Snow and Dana Holgorsen as consultants allows you to kind of flex your resource muscle. But, like, in what ways do we expect things to be dramatically different in these final 3 games? I don't think Dana Holgorsen can come in and just start calling plays. Mm-hmm. One, he doesn't know the verbiage. You're not going to change that on college kids with three weeks to go. You're not going to change that anywhere. I mean, I've talked with former Nebraska players that have played in the NFL, and they talked about how anytime there was a shift, you're still sticking within your playbook. You're still shifting. You know, it's still an internal person that would be calling those plays. So I think what it is it allows for someone to get a fresh set of eyes to look at what Nebraska's offensive personnel has, to see if there's different things that they can highlight, to offer some suggestions, to maybe put forth a little extra, you know, game strategy or a different kind of game strategy, because that maybe is where Nebraska is struggling a little bit. And maybe he's in the box with Marcus Satterfield, but I don't anticipate, and we certainly wouldn't hear it publicly, that he's going to be on the headset as the one calling things into Dylan Raiola. But I think he can have some value in a fresh set of eyes. I just don't know that this move jumpstart the offense for 2024. If it does anything, it gives him a little bit of a runway of like, okay, this is what Nebraska has. This is where I'm going to be for 2025. This is what we have to go try to find in the transfer portal. These are the players that I like to highlight going into the next year. I mean, it gives, if Dana Holgerson is here for 2025, it gives him a little bit of a runway before you try to have to go out and get players in the transfer portal. That might be the biggest part of all of this right now for it happening in November.
And Schaefer, I'm right there with you. I feel like this is more of a long-term thing. There are maybe certain things that this offense does that Holgerson can provide input that maybe they can lean into more that are subtle that could lead to maybe one more successful possession here and there. But I want to take a step back and look at these 3 games that remain. You mentioned USC, what they're going through. Wisconsin at home, where Wisconsin was, hey, they were feeling themselves for a little bit. Now they've gotten punched back a little bit. And then Iowa, night game, Kinnick Stadium, Friday night, Black Friday, that is. What is more likely in your opinion? 5-7, 6-6, or 7-5? I'm just going to throw 8-4 out there. I'm going to eliminate that one because I think that is the least probable. But between those 3 scenarios, 7-5, 6-6, and 5-7, what would you be the most confident in?
Well, confident in is probably 6-6. I mean, I think they have the ability to win more than one game out of these remaining 3. I mean, I truly think they have the ability to win all 3. I just don't think they have the consistency to show up and do it. Like, and if you were like, okay, so you're saying 6-6, which of the 3 games is most winnable? I'd sort of just revert to the shoulder shrug emoji because they all are. Like, for whatever Iowa is, we know exactly what that game is going to look like. It's a matter of can Nebraska finish that game instead of losing. Same with Wisconsin. I mean, you're going to get the same version of Wisconsin needing a win to get to bowl eligibility as you have the last 2 years. Nebraska had them on the ropes in 2022. They had them on the ropes in 2023. They didn't finish the job. So, I mean, to say that neither of those games would be winnable would be an outright lie. To say that Nebraska will definitely win one of those 2 is an outright lie. USC is sort of the tricky one. You got a new starting quarterback. They have 2 weeks to prepare. You have 2 weeks to prepare. Nebraska's coming off of a horrendous bye-week performance against Indiana that I think is in the back of everybody's head. But I think the rest of the program probably isn't viewing it in that same way. I think they view this as an opportunity, which is good. And, you know, like if you're any kind of competitor, and these guys are, they should be able to erase that and then move forward with that game against USC and not think about Indiana. That's for the rest. So, I mean, again, they have an opportunity to win any of these 3 games. Realistically, with how up and down they are, it'd be hard for me to say either 5-7 or 8-4, and more likely it's 6-6 or 7-5. And I would lean 6-6 because I just don't know that this program gets the benefit of the doubt anymore.
At the start of the season, we thought, I think a lot of us did, I don't know how you felt, but that wide receiver was going to be maybe the strongest position group on the offense, right? Like the transfers coming in, the development of the guys who got some playing time last year, the addition of Ja'Cory Barney, who has really shown up in a lot of the good things that Nebraska has done. But it seems like the rest of the group outside of Barney has really underperformed. And I don't know if you have a sense of why that might be, whether it's just these guys aren't as good as we thought they were. They aren't getting the proper coaching. The scheme doesn't suit them. I can't put my finger on it. I wonder if you can.
Well, it's got to be a combination of a lot of things. I mean, to start with, somebody like Jamal Banks, we probably didn't do a good enough job appreciating the work and the scheme that Dave Clawson puts together with the slow mesh. I mean, you talk to college coaches, a guy like Jamal Banks is open a lot because of the scheme that Wake Forest was able to provide. Now he has to go win one-on-ones against Big Ten defensive backs. He really hasn't been able to do that. And that was one of the concerns that people highlighted early in the season. And I thought it was a little over the top, and it turned out to be a real issue. And then on top of it, he's not really providing you great perimeter blocking. And so it's been pretty disappointing with Jamal Banks. Isaiah Nair has the better chance of beating one-on-ones. He's just wildly inconsistent. Like, I feel like you're not sure what version of Isaiah Nair you're going to get week to week. He is probably the second best behind Ja'Cory Barney in terms of showing up. I've been a little surprised by the usage of these two guys. One of them I wasn't expecting to play as much as he did, in Carter Nelson. But now that you're burned the red shirt, I'm wondering why he isn't playing more. And then the other one in Jalen Lloyd, I had a lot of high hopes for, and I don't know what it is, because there's nobody that's going to outwork Jalen Lloyd. So it's not a matter of he isn't showing up and working hard. It just seems to be they haven't been able to get on track what they want to do with him, how they want to use him. It feels like wildly different game to game. There's also this. Dylan's missing wide open wide receivers across the field. Not necessarily just throwing to them, but there are guys open that he is not finding. So it's not always just the receivers. It's not always just Dylan Raiola. It's usually a combination of it. But yeah, they've definitely disappointed in the sense that I thought this group was probably the best that we've seen since Kenny Bell, Quincy Enunwa, Jordan Westerkamp, 2013, 14, in that range. I mean, they were pretty loaded there. If you go back and you look at it retroactively. Now, I mean, to say that I thought those guys were going to be in that class, I mean, they haven't been close. You just haven't had a dominating individual performance. You have to have someone who can win one-on-one if teams are going to play quarter coverage or man coverage against you. And starting with Purdue, that's what everybody has basically said. Hey, if we get physical with these guys, we can take them out of the game. Indiana drove Nebraska's receivers out of the game. Yep. They weren't getting calls from the officials, and they don't necessarily always need to get those calls. But they couldn't win one-on-ones. And if you can't win one-on-ones as a wide receiver in the Big Ten, that is a huge problem for the offense.
Talking with Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7 Sports here on Mornings with Sharp and Hanley, 1620 The Zone. Okay, now, again, the Dana Holgorsen announcement, you hinted to this, Schaef. If this is more of a big picture, long-term type thing, we've heard in the original story that Pete Thamel put out that this role for Holgorsen could evolve. I think that would lead me to believe that would be an actual coach on the offensive staff and you're no longer a consultant / analyst or whatever it is. If you are, and this goes also back to Matt Rule's tone, where there was a little bit more of the, yes, it's our fault as coaches, but the players also need to do their part. There's a little more accountability there. That this offense, we know year 3 is going to be very, very important for this program under Matt Rule. What type of attraction do you think there could be on the offensive side to a Dana Holgorsen / Dylan Raiola offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a known enough name in certain areas. I mean, if you go down into Texas and Houston, people are going to know who that is. I mean, high school coaches are going to know who that is. I don't think it's going to hurt you in terms of recruiting. And I think Dylan Raiola is going to be a big benefit. But the way the season is finished, it doesn't look like it did even when you lost to Illinois. I mean, I keep going back to this. That was the best I thought Dylan Raiola had looked all year in a game in which Nebraska lost. Mm-hmm. And the offense from that point going forward has just gone in a totally opposite direction. That's really hard for me to conceive. I mean, they had their first touchdown pass last week since the Purdue game in the third quarter. Like, that encompasses the Rutgers game, the Indiana game, the Ohio State game, and the first half of, or most of the first half of, or maybe the entire first half of the UCLA game. That's a long time to not throw a touchdown pass for a team that's probably better built through the air than they are on the ground. So, that's kind of a shocking thing. And so the numbers aren't going to look great, but I think the relationship that Dylan Raiola has, I think people can sort of understand that it's not all on him. He's a true freshman. There's a reason he's the only true freshman to have started every game as a quarterback this year. It's very hard. And so I think they have the ability to bring in some talent. That hasn't really ever been the issue. It's, can you get it all to line up together? Can your development match up with the transfer portal guys that you bring in? Can the portal guys be better than what you already have? Can you go and beat teams like UCLA that you should already be beating? But, it's we can keep rearranging the deck chairs, but if you don't start winning games, nobody's going to care. Like, if you have Dana Holgorsen in 2025 and you're coming off of a 5-7 season, there might be a little bit of enthusiasm, but ultimately you've just gone 10-15 in your 2 seasons with losses throughout the month of November. You're 0-8 in November. But Dana Holgerson isn't going to fix that by himself. There's obviously other systemic issues if you can't figure out how to win games on Saturday.
The coaching staff, Matt Rule in particular, told us on the last bye week that they were saving all of their or most of their recruiting days for this bye week. Is there anything coming out of this week that Nebraska's had off that you're seeing on the recruiting trails?
Yeah, I mean, with Matt Rule specifically, he's been down in Texas. They went to see Malcolm Simpson, of course, their defensive end commitment that they had at USC. Texas has been poking around with. I think they'll be able to keep Malcolm. We'll see. I'm trying to see how that conversation with Matt Rule when he stopped by his school went for him. And then today, Matt Rule is going to be in Nixa, Missouri, which if you don't know where Nixa, Missouri is, that's okay. But you should know who's in Nixa, Missouri, and that's one of the top players in the 2026 class, Jackson Cantwell. Unbelievable offensive line talent. Unbelievable talent in general. I mean, I think he's like 34 on his ACTs, like a 4.0 student. Very bright, very good player. The son of two fantastic track athletes, one with the connection to the state of Nebraska. His mom's originally from Crete. His dad's one of the best throwers, in a generation. So, there's a ton of athletic talent there. There's a Nebraska connection. He's been to the campus a bunch of times. They've developed a good relationship. That is a critical recruitment for 2026, and Matt Rule is expected to be at his game tonight. And so that'll be something to keep an eye on as well.
Schaef, I appreciate you. Well, I guess I don't, because I wanted to see you really getting more in.
You don't appreciate Mike Schaefer?
And he knows it. That was
Nick.
bad.
Nick just said it on the airwaves. He doesn't appreciate you, Mike.
It was. I said it. I said it.
You set a standard for yourself, and then you don't meet it. It's like when you go play Ohio State close, and everyone gets excited, and then you come out and you don't perform the way the next week.
Yeah,
so that's just how it is. I'll have to do some soul searching this week and get myself prepared for next Friday as Nebraska heads to the USC, and I actually head up to Sioux Falls. I will be watching Nebraska St. Mary's on Sunday.
All right. Yeah, and I know you're chomping at the bit to get into a little Vikes Jags this week. I feel like you guys will be just fine. I like the Vikes covered in that one too.
Going to play? I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to.
No, he's not. He's not playing. He's not playing.
I don't know that there's going to be a big discernible difference between the starter and the backup. That's how bad Trevor Lawrence has been.
Yes, because that would be one of Mac Jones. And if Mac Jones goes down, do you know who?
TJ Beathard.
Yes, Sunshine.
I follow some waiver wire additions when it comes to the teams that the Vikings are going to play.
Yeah.
So.
There you go.
Hey, Mike.
Take a win. They just need to win by one or more. That's what I need from the Vikings.
I got Cover City for you guys this weekend. Feel really good.
Boy.
About it.
Mike, Phillips Avenue Diner in Sioux Falls.
Oh,
Phillips Avenue Diner. I think I went there last year. It's a little downtown diner, right?
Yep. Great breakfast.
Looks like an old, kind of like an old school diner.
It's like a 50s drive-in kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yep. I had it last year. It was fantastic.
Yep.
Schaef, enjoy the bye week, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Thanks for having me.